Hello, this is GBC News and GTV. My name is Sarah Furi. Buckingham Palace on Friday, 9th April, announced the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, His Royal Highness Prince Philip, at age 99. He was married to the Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, for 73 years. Since the news of his passing, tributes have been rife across the globe, and today we are here to speak with a former Ghanaian leader who we are told had a personal relationship with the Prince or the Duke of Edinburgh, and at some time they were considered to be buddies. Your Excellency John Ejikun Kufuor, we are so delighted to have you share your thoughts with us.
Welcome and thank you to my home.
Okay, and so how close a buddy would you say you two were?
Buddy might not be the right word to use, but I would say I was honored to be an acquaintance, especially when I assumed office as President of Ghana, because of our membership of the Commonwealth, and also from the many international occasions in which I had to take part, and he also happened to be there, either escorting the Queen or representing the Queen of Britain. And so we got to know each other well. And even after I stepped down from office as president, I think he visited Ghana on one of his projects. And again, I had the occasion to ride with him, drive with him, and exchange pleasantries. Acquaintance, good acquaintance, but not a buddy. Buddy would mean like
informal.
Informal and sharing a glass of beer or something occasionally. Okay. I didn't get that close with him.
So if you would recall, what was your first encounter with him?
Well, way back as a student in Britain, I studied in Britain from 1959 to 64. I returned to Ghana 65 January. There was a place, and I believe it's still there, called the Cumberland Lodge near the Windsor Castle. This place is an old palace or castle in the Windsor Great Park, and quite close to where the Duke used to play polo. I remember in my student days in London being invited in those times to the Cumberland Lodge for a weekend. And on one occasion, I think the Duke's team was playing polo in the Great Park, and we were invited to go and watch. And that was, I think, my first time of seeing him. That time, I was a student, about 21, 22. So that's when I saw him for the first time. Of course, I was impressed with his skill as a horseman and also a polo player. And then along the way, it took quite a while though, I came into politics. I became the Deputy Foreign Minister of Ghana, 1969 to 72. And I had the privilege of also seeing him through the Commonwealth Organization. And, but still, he was a bit high up. I was just a young politician, an upstart if you want to use that word. Then eventually I became President of Ghana, and 2001. So I attended the Commonwealth meetings, summits, I think, during which he attended with the Queen being the head of the Commonwealth. And any occasions I think we attended the summits, he would escort the Queen. Occasionally, but I would say very occasionally, when the Queen perhaps could not make it, it would be the Duke representing her. And so there we met, and he was that type of person, not too formal. He didn't stand to ceremony too much.
Yes.
He would walk to you, ask you how you're doing, ask about your country and that sort of thing. So we got talking. And then eventually, I think in 2007, I got the invitation for a state visit to Great Britain. And when we landed in London, there was an honor guard for me at the Horse Guards Parade, which is right behind the Prime Minister's 10 Downing Street area. That's the former place for the honor guards being stayed by the Queen for visitors.
Soldiers, and the Duke of Edinburgh will be the man who will take him forward to perform that duty. Very close to here, the greatest tragedy in the history of the band occurred. It was playing in the Guards Chapel of Wellington Barracks when a German flying bomb hit it. Over 120 people were killed, including the director of music. Bands played all over the world since 1945. Here we go on that inspection.
I was there with my wife, and of course the Queen came with the Duke and Prime Minister and all the dignitaries of Britain to meet me and my entourage. When the guard was put up and I had to inspect, the Queen remained on the dais, and it was the Duke that escorted me to inspect the guard. It was an impressive occasion for me. And then after that, I rode in the royal coach with the Queen, of course with the Duke following by another coach. Into Buckingham Palace, my wife and I were the guests of the Queen, and of course supported by the Duke. We stayed with them in the Buckingham Palace for 3 days. Wow. And at the end of the 3 days, the Queen gave us a big banquet attended by, I think, about 175 dignitaries, ambassadors, lords, prime ministers, and so forth. The interesting thing was the banquet was, I believe, on the 3rd floor or so of the palace. And there's a long flight of steps together. There was also a lift, an elevator, I would say a rather old elevator. And whilst the Queen and my wife had gotten to the 3rd floor, the Duke had to take me with him through this lift to get there. Unfortunately, as the elevator got halfway, he got stuck. And then, typical of the Duke, he started yelling for, I believe, the houseman who was maintaining it. Brown, Brown, get us out of here. Get us down. The machine won't go up. And so Mr. Brown rushed around, ran down. We could hear him, rushing with a crank to sort of crank the lift to put us back to the ground floor. And when we got there, Mr. Brown, the mechanic of sorts, quickly repaired the lift, and it was ready to take us back up. But then the Duke turned on me, "We're going." So I looked at it, and I wasn't sure that that ancient thing could take us to 3rd floor. So I said, "I'd rather walk the steps." So I said, "All right." And then we started walking. But to my surprise, and he's about almost 18 years or even 20 years older than me. But this guy could walk the 3 flight of steps without holding on to the rail.
So energetic.
The rail, very strong, erect and strong. I, with my kente on, always struggled. I wanted to use the railings, but because he was doing it without help, and given the age differential, I thought I should. By the time I got to the 3rd floor, I was wheezing.
You're panting for breath.
And wheezing for breath. So that's an experience. And he was also always ready to laugh. He was very, in a way, so informal. And then another occasion I should remember was when the Chatham House, Chatham House as an institute, declared me as the leadership winner of the Times. And so I was invited formally for the award. Ordinarily, the Queen, being the host or hostess, should have done me that honor. Yeah. But rather, Queen couldn't make it, so it was the Duke that presented the award to me. And I went with my wife. In fact, Kufuor attended the occasion. It was another very big occasion. And the Duke came graciously to present the award, and we took pictures and that sort of thing. So I came to know him. His family, of course, the Queen, I met several times. Their children, Prince Charles, Princess Anne, and the younger princess, I met all of them. So this is
how your first encounter went.
Yes.
Okay. So, but I'll say that he had a great sense of humor.
Very much. That one,
that he could even pass jokes that would make you blush sometimes.
Blush? I don't know.
Some silly jokes, I mean.
No, well, what I would say of him is that he was very forthright with his opinions. Okay. And he was a soldier, and not given to too much ceremony, as I said. Yeah. So he spoke directly and openly, and I believe with some candor. If he didn't understand it, he would let you know. If he didn't appreciate it, he would let you know. That's how I saw him.
So would you agree that he always had a relaxed approach to issues compared to the Queen who...
Please, I couldn't compare him with his wife.
Yes.
The Queen is the Queen.
Yes.
And so when you are head of state, you have to respect your security and protocol.
Yes.
You have to perform to a certain sort of order.
That's true.
The Duke was part of her system, but Duke taking always 2 or 3 steps behind her, used that space, the gap, be himself. Obviously, he always wanted to be himself, but he didn't pretend at all. And but as I said, what I could remember of him or say of him, that very natural, without pretensions, and forthright with his opinions as far as he could.
So what are the things that stand out most to you when you think about the Prince?
He had great charisma, and he exuded leadership. He was a soldier by profession, and a sportsman, great sportsman. I think I've told you, first time I saw him was when he was playing polo, and the skill with riding horses and that sort of thing naturally impressed me. And then in all, or if I would say, any occasion I had to meet with him, he attracted and radiated leadership. He was a natural leader. That I would say of him. And he was also blessed. He lived to a great old age, just 2 months short of 100 years. I think when you say 99 years, you should either say 100 years, just minus 2 months. And the last time I heard on the news of him, just about 3 weeks or so, when he was released from hospital, I believe the media people were particular in saying he walked out of the hospital into his car. 100-year-old man walking out when much younger people would need to be helped. So that was Duke of Edinburgh.
How did you take the news of his passing, and how do you think it will impact on the Commonwealth?
Well, let me tell you my basic belief. Once you are born, then one sure thing that would happen is a day will come when you die. It depends on what you put into your life. If you lived well, related well with mankind, served the community well, and you pass, naturally then you'll be mourned, you'll be remembered. People feel the loss of your going. So I would think, given the length of service you rendered to his family, to his nation, Britain, and to the Commonwealth, and also to mankind, because he traveled the world over. Many people would miss him. There would be a gap. But then, how many people would live to 100 years? So naturally, the time has come for him to go, and we are sorry for a man like that to go, for us to miss him. But I think what we should do is not so much to mourn endlessly than to pray that the good Lord would give him eternal rest, because he really made himself relevant to many people and to many situations. So his going would be missed.
Okay. So what do you think his legacies were?
To me, he behaved like a good human being, great human being, of relevance, as I said, charismatic, with leadership qualities, strong, forthright in his opinions. I don't think it will be everybody that would like him. People like him. You either like him or you do not like him. And he didn't seem to care. He would just be himself. And I wish people would try to be themselves always, rather than to pretend.
So one of his legacies, or known legacies, is the institution of the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, also known as
that's great, but that's concern for mankind.
Yes.
It's to encourage youth across the racial lines and national lines.
Especially in the Commonwealth.
To show leadership.
Yes.
To show initiative, to learn to take reasonable risks to better the lot of their communities. So that one.
So how do you think that impacted on the young, especially in Africa?
Without leadership, we shouldn't talk of transformation. So anything that would nurture in the youth to learn to take initiatives, sensible initiatives, and to help move societies forward should be appreciated. And so that legacy, and I'm sure he's left many legacies, that one should be appreciated, and he will be remembered very much for.
Okay. So one of the things that we should probably pat our backs for was the fact that when he was asked who the greatest African he had ever met was, he mentioned Kwame Nkrumah. Do you agree?
That was his opinion.
Okay.
And as I've told you, he is a man that spoke his mind as far as I knew. So if he said that of Nkrumah, fantastic, I would say. That's how he saw him. And it shouldn't be surprising, because the Queen became Queen, I believe, in the 50s, before Ghana became independent.
Yes.
But the Duke was already her husband. The young couple, and Ghana was the first country in the British colonial, if you like, element on the continent of Africa, south of Sahara, to have gained independence. So the Queen, and Ghana remained part of the monarchy till 1961, even after independence, before we became a republic. So I'm sure the Duke had many occasions to meet with Nkrumah. And Duke himself must have been a young man. So he perhaps sized Nkrumah up keenly for him to conclude that was perhaps the greatest African he'd met. So, and that Nkrumah was our leader, Ghana's leader. I believe should go well for us. We should take it as a pat on the back of Ghanaians generally, giving ourselves a great leader.
Okay, so what lessons do you think he bestowed to us before he left?
Fit in with our social arrangement as much as we can lawfully, but we shouldn't miss our identity, even in the crash of protocol and security and all that. We should try always to maintain our identity without pretense, and we should be humans, good humans.
So for a man his caliber, would probably expect some pomp and pageantry for his funeral, but we've heard reports that he wouldn't want such a fuss. Is that in line with a man you know?
Left to him as Mr. Philip or whatever, his wishes would be respected. Left to him. But he was the husband of the Queen of Great Britain, who was also head of the Commonwealth organization. And they are royalty. The royals generally belong to the realms over which they rule. And when you are talking realms and kingdoms and nations, and leadership should respect security and respect protocol. So I'm sure, in spite of his personal wishes, royalty, nationhood, the Commonwealth, and the global organization might overrule his personal wishes and accord him the last honors and respects that a guy like that should be given.
Okay. Your Excellency, we appreciate your time with us and sharing your thoughts with us.
Well, I thank you for coming to talk to me about this man I was honored to meet. As I said, not once, but many times. And I came to appreciate him, like him. He was a man's man, exuded leadership, charisma, with a sense of humor, sometimes very biting humor, and also always with a twinkle in his eye. And I had one or two occasions I saw he had an eye for beauty, the opposite sex.
Okay.
So, and obviously too, he must have been a good family man.
Sure.
Because the way the Queen and their children always sort of hovered around him. He must have been a good family person. So naturally, I came to appreciate him. And as I said, it's sad that such a man has to go, because that's the way nature organized all of us. But he lived well, and I'm sure in large measure he would be remembered very well.
Your Excellency, we thank you, and we are so appreciative of your time.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, we've been speaking to His Excellency, former President John Ejikun Kufuor, sharing his thought with us about the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. He had a personal relationship with him. He's one of the few Ghanaians who was a guest of honor at the palace during his tenure of office.